for Gen Z, we work with people.
Mhm.
And I think people matters a lot to us because that's where we learn to be. I mean, we get empowered, we get inspired. And it's always the person and not so much of the organization. Because I feel like you can go anywhere and you will earn the same amount of money, you'll be working the same, day-to-day task.
Yeah.
But who is the one that is driving, the whole project? Who is actually, giving you that guidance matters a lot to us. Because if we were to follow a leader that we don't buy, then we would leave because it's a waste of my time. You get what I mean? It's more of if we want to follow you, that's why we stay. And that will also be why, sometimes when Gen Z leaves the company, the only struggle is always, I don't want to leave because I have a very good leader.
Mhm.
And it's not so much of I don't want to leave because I like my job.
You leave because you don't like your job in the first place, okay?
Yeah. But it's more of like we have, Gen Z are also people,
We have
we
attachment.
have attachment issues. And I think good leaders, they can actually empower Gen Z and they can make Gen Z think of not leaving. That's how it works.
Isn't that like gaslighting?
Not gaslighting.
No lah.
If I mean
Convince.
convince.
Okay, I'll put it
That's a
this.
very
You're
good
looking
word,
at
convince.
good leaders that they inspire you and they convince you to stay. But how long would you stay with this leader if the organizational values and purpose is
Yeah.
not aligned?
Align. And yeah, that's also why.
What would be the tipping point in this case?
that, what would be the tipping point? I feel like for leaders, okay, if for my case, like I just resigned, and I had that very long struggle of whether I want to leave because my head of department and my leader was really good, and she trusts me. She gave me that space to grow. She helped me and guided me through a lot of projects, and it shows how much she value me. And that's why I struggle a lot to whether to leave or not, because I know that everything will fall on her if I were to leave and there's no one to help her. But I still chose to leave because the organization don't have that system or that purpose anymore. And it doesn't serve me. And I don't want to stay any longer because I know that even in 5 years' time or even in 2 weeks' time, there's nothing gonna change.
Yeah.
Then what's the point? But
Yeah.
if I were to see like, okay, there is a chance or there is a hope where things can be different, then I would stay.
So it's not necessarily the organization's fault, but it's more towards this is you. Your organization is going to be this way, and
Yeah.
it doesn't serve my values and purpose anymore.
Yeah.
Right? That is when that's the tipping point. You say this is something that I have to move out from. Right?
Yes. It's like a whole different season of my life.
Yes, yeah. And that's, I think, something very interesting that you brought up, that we all have different seasons in our life, right? So how do we understand which season are you in your life that will serve your purpose, right? So you have the organization's vision, purpose, mission, etc. And your leaders will also have their own purpose and mission and vision,
Yep.
right? So and how does it connect to your own vision as well? And how we operate on a day-to-day is the values that you bring to the table. So your leaders may have different values, and you may have different values, and that's where whether you get connected or you get disconnected is based on this gap that you see.
And I think the word comes up last time, especially with Gen X, as loyalty. I mean, what does loyalty mean nowadays?
Yeah, to Gen X.
To Gen X, I know what it means to Gen Z, right? We're loyal to the purpose, but what does Gen X think of loyalty right now?
Oh, I think loyalty has a little bit been fragmented also these days, right? And you have to go back to what is your own value system that you truly look at, right? So and Gen X main struggle is the difference in the environment those days, right, versus these days as well. So I think, in previous generations or even before COVID, right? Or even before the digitalization era, there's this high loyalty even to the products that you use, etc. Right? And but today is very different, right? We look at what works faster, what works better. So, while we may not, we may hold on to that loyalty value, how does it represent itself? Yeah, it may change.
Because I've been seeing like previous generations, it's very common to have people work 10, 20 years in organizations. And it's a given. That is the company where you intern and that's the company where you retire.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yes.
That is crazy.
And it's still existent in some organizations today.
Yeah, but for now, we are looking at 3 years.
Less than that.
I mean, that's a general lifespan of 3 years. I mean,
Yes.
put it this way, first year you're here to experience, see what's about the company. Second year, you're here to prove, here to grow. And then the third year, you see whether this is a company I want to stay further. Yes or no. But most of them, by the 5th year, they're going somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right.
But when you said that the second year is where you want to prove something, right? I feel like for a lot of Gen Z, they really know their identity and they know their values, and there's nothing to prove. And that's why I feel like a lot of Gen Zs are hopping way faster, even 9 months, 8 months.
Yes,
see that happening because maybe they learn everything in 6 months.
Yes.
And the remaining 2 months, they're actually looking for the other job already.
Yeah.
Because they know I don't have to prove anything. If I go out there, I give, I send my resume, and so many companies want me. That proves my worth.
Yeah.
Not so much of me staying here and I have to do this. It's my integrity to prove something before I leave. I think that's a lot of Gen Y where they stay because they haven't proved yet. But what is there to prove?
Wow. Okay.
Okay, this is something, for me, I would say I would take a while to, but let's just hear from Shireen. You've been from the band.
That's quite interesting to digest as well. And I think it's because simply of the focus points, right? Where you are on a different accelerated vision of yourself, right? If you look on social media, everyone's a millionaire by 30. Right?
They retire by 30.
Yeah, and I'm wondering like what am I still doing? So there's this like, oh no, okay, never mind, But that is what we've been conditioned. So how can organizations use these patterns and behaviors to retain employees, right? So it's no longer about, okay, you're a marketing exec, you grow into a assistant manager, you grow into a senior manager, and then, give you that. But what is new for you? What is different for you? What is it that you're looking out that I cannot offer you here today, right? So it's about where we can try to retain this person, but still give a different experience that they want, right? So it could be something like, and I see this a lot in the inclusion projects or inclusion activities in organizations where they need to understand that, okay, a Gen Z or a Gen Y, or the younger tenured employees, they are going through different seasons in their lives. So now that they have this season, maybe, starting a family, etc., how can we support them? How can we help them? Giving them something else. And then when they return, what else can we do for them? Right? Doesn't mean that, okay, I've had a kid and then I'm returning. I still have to work how I'm working before that. I may have different priorities and I expect the organization to understand me.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a DEI initiative in the organization. So how open is Gen Z or Gen Y to the conversation, and how open is their managers and leaders to this conversation?
True. I feel like Gen Z would always be open, but it's really up to whether they are okay to take it and how do we find that middle ground.
Yeah.
But I would say, like you said, even now, 8-9 months is even less than a year. But next year, my New Year resolution, new company.
But I believe I believe even
Why?
that,
Why?
yeah, why?
Yeah. So what and why keeps these people to, let's say for Shireen's case, how does organization help to retain these talents? What can they do, or why?
First thing would be hear us out. Hear us out. And I feel like a lot of organizations out there might not hear. They might listen and they don't understand why are you acting this way? Why are you demanding for more? I feel like Gen Zs are very brave also. I would give a shout out to Gen Zs. Thank you for being brave. Yeah.
Pat yourself on the back.
Pat yourself on the back, because I feel like you always voice out. Gen Zs always voice out when something is not right. And because we grew up in a world where a lot of systems die and a lot of systems break down, and we see that. And whenever we see like, okay, hey, this company, you are reaching there, we are trying to, tell you or, voice out, they might not take it and say like, hey, you're just in for what, 1 year? Few
What do you
months?
know?
What do you know? And that's when Gen Z feel like, okay, since, even small little things you don't trust, you don't want to listen to me, what's the point?
Yeah.
That's when they start to look out and say, if I'm not valued here, I'm not, heard here, I might as well go somewhere where I'm heard.
But how sure are you that you'll be heard somewhere else?
That's another whole topic. But if you're talking about now, I believe for me, myself, I've always been the one that voice out. I don't shy away. I'm not afraid. I feel like a lot of Gen Zs, we're not afraid to voice out. And if this company don't hear, that's why it keeps 5 months, 6 months. This company don't hear me, next one.
Yeah, I'll take
This
the
com-
chance
yeah,
somewhere
don't-
else.
Yeah, if this company also don't hear me, go somewhere else. If this company also don't hear me, I start my own company. You get what I mean? We grew up in a way we have so many choices.
Yes.
There's so many way out. And that's the quote we always use, like, if you work, there's always money. So no matter where I work, I also get money. Might as well I go somewhere where I'm heard.
Yeah. And I think also to jump in on that is you can always make a quick buck somewhere, and versus and you have that risk attitude that you're willing to, and it's a calculated risk, you're willing to put it down to try. Yeah. So even if I don't have a job, I can, become a driver, I can do tuition, I can do something. I can write content, I can go on Fiverr, right? Or launch a course on Kajabi. So there's so many options. But, in my time, your parents will tell you better don't leave without a job, because who's going to pay your next month's rental, right? And it's a tough one for organizations, because organizations have structure. So do organizations view their structure as shackles, or is the structure allowing them to maneuver things towards the needs of the business? Yeah. So I had one case where a Gen Z said that she needed to work from home because she had to care for the parents, etc. And then somebody, the manager said, it's okay for a couple of months, but we need you to find a more, permanent solution because it's HR policy. So the moment you throw some, big word like that, a bomb, so you as the manager is telling me this because it's a HR policy. You're not listening to my struggles.
Yes.